Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Pankeev. I'm an associate professor and co-chair of Ukrainian culture and ethnography at the Department of Modern Languages and Cultural Studies, Faculty of Arts, and the director of Kule Center at the University of Alberta. Both the Kule Center and the University of Alberta are located on Treaty 6 territory, the land of many indigenous peoples and the homeland of Métis Nation. We respect the sovereignty, lands, histories, languages, knowledge systems, and culture of all of those nations. The Folklore Center is the leading research institution dedicated to the study of Ukrainian folklore, culture, traditions, and the everyday manifestations of identities. The Folklore Center actively supports interdisciplinary scholarships, fostering collaboration between faculty, graduate students, and community partners interested in exploring Ukrainian cultural heritage in Canada and beyond. A central feature of the Folklore Center is its extensive archival collection, which constitute one of the most comprehensive repositories of Ukrainian Canadian folklore in North America. In addition to its archival and research functions, the Folklore Center is highly active in organizing scholarly and community events, including international conferences, academic roundtables, symposia, exhibitions, and public lectures. And today we are proud to open our 2025 Fall Cool Lecture Series. Our today's speaker, Kateryna Dysa, is an associate professor and in the history department of the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. She has been active and she has been a visiting fellow at Harvard, Stanford, Paris, and Oxford universities, as well as a visiting professor at the University of Basel. She is the author of Ukrainian Witchcraft Trials, Volhynia, Podolia, and Ruthenia, 17th and 18th century, and of numerous articles on the history of witchcraft, sexuality, and medicine in early modern Ukraine. Currently, she is working on a project analyzing images of Kyiv in travel literature from the 18th through the early 20th century. And the title and the topic of her presentation today is devoted also to her book, Ukrainian Witchcraft Trials in the 17th 18th century. But before we start, the announcement that the Q&A session will be happening through the Q&A window, which is located at the bottom of your window. So please post all your questions, and at the end, our media assistant Ilya Pokatilo will read them for the discussion. And Dr. Dysa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Let me share my presentation now. I hope you can see it. And today, in this lecture, I would like to give a very general overview of Ukrainian witchcraft trials, discussing trends that define their specific character, such as the legal system and religious factors, as well as distinct features of witchcraft accusations. But I would start with a story. And before doing this, I'm not sure how well people are versed in geography of Ukraine. I have this map. We don't need it for long now. I just wanted to show you where the story is happening. Just ignore all the borders. We are talking about early 18th century, so this is not important now, but just look at the red point in the area called Volhynia. So we're talking about Volhynian Palatinate of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And the story is happening in the small town called Vyzhva, and this point indicates where Vyshva is, because I'm sure that not many people, even in Ukraine, would find it or heard about this. But this town was very productive in terms of witchcraft conflicts leading to accusations. And further, you will see, to make it easier for you to follow the story with all these obscure Ukrainian names, I decided to make visual. So you'll see this people with names I will be mentioning in my story. And you can see how they are related to each other. I try to make this chart as a kind of genealogy. So we'll start in January 1731, and our first character is Lukian Zadrychuk, a town dweller of Vyshva, who came to the town court with charges of slander against the wife of Fedor Koladych. Her name was Olyanushka, and she happened to be a sister of Zadrychuk's wife. So they're related. And Lukian claimed that once, during a quarrel, Olyanushka had accused her sister. We know her only under her husband's name, Lukyanecha, of bewitching a certain man called Supranyuk, who had died as a result. Moreover, at another time, she had called Lukyan's children witch people. A witness to this quarrel, a Jewish woman called Bela Beskova, was also invited to the court and was questioned as a witness, and she told the court officials that one time Olyanushka had come to her inn, she was inn owner, and complained that her sister was conspiring against her, and had even managed to involve a local priest in her dark plan, so that during church service, the priest had allegedly turned the chalice upside down in order to harm Olyanushka. Olyanushka had taken fright and was unsure if he would survive this bewitchment. And this Jewish woman, Beskova, was struck by the story and had even attempted to reason with Lukyanecha when she met her in the town, trying to persuade her that it was not good to do harm to her own family, to her own sister. Lukyanecha had answered her, and it's a quote, "I have heard from other people that my sister has been saying about me, and it is not true." So she tried to defend herself. Cases like this, where relatives accused each other of witchcraft, were not rare. We have many examples of trial when siblings were accusing other siblings, and even more often, in-laws were accusing each other, and stepchildren were accusing their, mostly stepmothers. However, this case stands out as the case with a longer family story behind it. It could be just a single case, and it would be very typical for Ukraine. It didn't have any resolution. Someone came with the accusation and just reported slander, and court even asked one witness in this case, and made a record, and then everything was forgotten. But in this case, I was lucky because in court books of the next year, 1732, I found the a continuation of this story with the people, with the same people involved. So the picture is getting bigger, and now you can see new characters added. This time, the son of Lukian and Lukianeha and their neighbors are involved. These unofficial accusations of Lukianeha practicing witchcraft continued in May 1739, so 1732, sorry. Then a neighbor of Zadraichuks, Pavel Ogorechuk, had a quarrel with the family of his neighbors about the pasturing of cattle. As a result, the relationship between the two families was spoiled, and mutual summons to the court followed. According to a report in one of the court records, Gorechuk's wife had called Lukyaneha a witch when she met her in the town. It was also usual thing to not to go to court with accusations of witchcraft, but to make it known to the whole town, to make these accusations loud in the center of the town, and make everyone know about someone being a witch. In another context, this episode could have easily been taken as mass slander. However, from the further development of events, it is obvious that Orechuk's wife had a clear basis for calling Lukyaneha a witch. Well, at least she believed so. The accusations moved to another level when the son of Lukyaneha and Lukyan, Olexa, became involved. One day he came across Gorechuk's wife, his neighbor, who immediately started to insult him, quote, calling him an evil witch person, saying that his grandmother, Lomazyanka, ate tokarek and Hilchuk, and his mother, also a witch, ate Supranyuk. Unquote. From these accusations, one can see that the reputation for witchcraft was firmly assigned to Lukyaneha after the death of Supranyuk, because her sister accused her of killing Supranyuk, and now her neighbors were accusing her son of being part of the family which killed this Supranyuk. Whose alleged bewitchment had already been mentioned in previous year. I would like to comment on this accusation about eating, that their grandmother ate someone and that his mother ate someone. So this cannibalistic metaphor was also a part of witchcraft accusations. Well, it didn't mean that they were cannibals and ate people, and someone believed that they physically ate someone, but it was a descriptive part of what was believed to be a witch disease. According to these popular beliefs, witches were causing people's death by inflicting this bewitchment, the charovanya, and this was a kind of belief, as a kind of disease, sorry. And usually it inflicted young people or children who were quite healthy before the conflict with an alleged witch, and after that they just waned very quickly, like losing weight, and some spots could appear on the skin, and others would describe that this person was eaten. Going back to our story, the fact that Orechuk's wife traced her accusations of witchcraft back 3 generations, from Olexa to his mother, and then all the way back to the grandmother, demonstrates that she felt it meaningful to remind the community that witchcraft ran across generations within the family line. And in this particular case, we are unusually fortunate to have evidence to support Ohrelchuk's wife claimed that the family was already associated with witchcraft in the grandmother generation. I actually went back and I found this case about Lukyaneha's and Olanushka's mother, Lomazyanka. Actually, it was published by Vladimir Antonovich in his famous collection of witchcraft trials. And, well, the case of Lomazyanka is there. Going back to Vyshva's court record from the 1710s, we find that in July 1716, 16 years before the incident with Olexa, a resident of Vyshva, Lomazyanka, Alexa's grandmother, had brought charges against Suprunyova and her family, complaining that Suprunova's children had come to her house several times and insulted her. And if you remember, her daughter, Lomazyanka, was accused of eating Supranyuk. So this family which was accusing their mother 16 years ago. The story, the accusation of Lomazyanka went as follows. Once the son of Suprunyova said to Lomazyanka, quote, "You have already eaten Tokarek and Hilchuk, and now you are trying to eat our mother. Beware, you witch. You won't escape. We are harnessing oxen and will send for the hangman." So they were threatening her without going to the court. And she went to the court, actually, placing this accusation of slander. And two more people were declared dead by means of witchcraft caused by this Lomazyanka, Tokarek, and Hilchuk. And later, in the second generation, the daughter of Lomazyanka bewitched Supranyuk, who was attacking her mother. As suggested by the prior accusations, all of the later accusations had a long history. The memory of the magical eating of Tokarek, Hilchuk, and Supranyuk proved to have a long life and haunted three generations of the family, solidifying their reputation as witch people within this town community. And this is not the end. There is a continuation of the story. The last victim of the bad family reputation, ironically enough, was Olanushka Kolyadacheva, the sister of Lomazyanka, who started these accusations and who had circulated rumors of witchcraft against her own sister, and as a result had faced charges of slander in 1731. The same year when the son of Lomazyanka, of Lukyaneha, was accused of witchcraft by their neighbors. But in a few months later, in August, Olanushka was summoned to the court to face a complaint lodged by a man named Danilo, who accused her of bewitching his child during a quarrel. The cursed infant died soon afterwards, and there were certain signs that the child had been eaten. Actually, the father went to a Jewish innkeeper, and she confirmed that she saw this spots on child's marks on the skin of the child, which they all interpreted as signs of bewitchment and killing this child by witchcraft. It is likely that Olyanushka had been suspected of being a witch for some time. Moreover, she belonged to the family of witches, but in this instance, it was the concrete evidence of the child's death that proved her guilt beyond a doubt, according to this community beliefs. So this complicated, and also we don't know how this case of about a child being bewitched and allegedly killed by witchcraft, how it ended. Court was unusually active in this case. They sent some investigators to have a look at the child, but there is no continuation. We don't know how it ended or if it even had a continuation. So this complicated and perplexed case, or rather a series of cases, is a rare example that allows us to trace the story of 3 generations of the family suspected and continuously accused of witchcraft. However, in some respects, it is also quite typical for Ukrainian witchcraft trials of the 17th and 18th centuries. We see that the court did not go beyond merely recording the accusations. No investigation apart from this last part was initiated, and none of those accused of witchcraft were ever punished. In fact, some of these accusations were qualified as slander cases, and they started as slander cases. The very narrative of which family is a merit of the researchers, mine, insistence, patience, and curiosity, not at all the result of a thorough investigation or good record keeping. In the process of reading through court records, moving day after day and year after year, I just happened to stumble upon the same names and eventually managed to put the ends together and figure out the family ties between the Zadiraychuk, Slomazyanka, and Olyanushka Kolyadacheva, and the way of naming women in Ukraine after their relatives also didn't help, because it's impossible to trace this family ties only by names of women, and here all the women were related. Witchcraft trials in general are hard to deal with, not only Ukrainian ones. And Ukrainian witchcraft trials are particularly frustrating in this regard. Record keeping in Ukrainian towns became a more or less routinized practice in the 17th century, yet even the available records often lack comprehensive details. Many documents merely recorded complaints without proving conclusions, without any investigation, leaving researchers in the dark about the outcome of promising cases. And this lack of closure reflects the specificity of the court trial system in Ukrainian towns. Towns with self-governing privileges operated under German legal systems, and they used such law codes as the Carolina Code and Saxon Mirror, the same codes which were used in German cities and in Germany, as we know, in German lands. The level of witchcraft persecutions and executions was the highest in Europe. and it is very it's worth noting that actually in German lands, where they have this highest level of executions, and in Ukraine, where we have one of the lowest probably levels of executions, they use the same laws, leading to completely different outcomes. And in the Polish kingdom and later in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, courts followed interpretations of these German laws written by the Polish lawyer Bartolomew Grodzki. And here you can see the cover of his book. Ukrainian courts occasionally referenced Grodzki manuals, indicating their use of these legal frameworks, especially in those very few cases where it came to execution. They would, or where they decided that they will not punish those who were accused of witchcraft harshly. They usually cited these articles from Grodzki's manual, but very often they would give wrong numbers and cite just imagining things instead of providing, citations. And among these laws, which the courts used most often, were these provisions for the punishment of witchcraft, typically by death, by fire, but it was very rare occasion. Other provisions were about the use of torture, which was also rarely, but was used in Ukrainian courts. But these laws and these manuals, they were just theory. In practice, the things were quite different, and courts just used their intuition to judge about what was going on. Well, the same map, just to let you know that about my case study, because it was impossible to cover all the Ukraine with this level of record keeping, because this court books are huge, like sometimes 500 pages and more, and you just have to go from page to page to find what you need, and it is very time consuming and energy consuming, and it's very frustrating because you can go through the whole book and find nothing, or you can find these very promising cases without ending. So I just I concentrated and considered cases from just 3 palatinates of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Ruthenian, it is on this map, it's Galicia, roughly. Volhynia, which is Volhynian Palatinate, and Podolia, or Podolian Palatinate. Because they had some of the best record keeping among in comparison to other territories, and the best rate of record survival. Because, for example, all the archives of Kiev courts were destroyed by the fire in the 19th century. And for comparative reason, I also looked at some trials from the Hetmanate. Well, here it's roughly the territory of Little Russia. They also have quite good records, but for later time, only for the 18th century, mostly for the 18th century. And it was part of the Russian Empire, so they were using a bit different, system of of reporting. But anyway, I have an idea what was going on the other side of the border. But still, the hetmanate and its witchcraft trials deserve separate research, which has not yet been done. I will tell you a little bit about the cases I worked with and I managed to find. So I had a sample of roughly 200 cases, a bit less, 198. And there is a documentary evidence for only 13 executions. It's very low rate. This number is very low, as I said, in comparison to other countries. And even within the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, it was much higher in other places. For example, the researcher of Polish witchcraft trials, Małgorzata Pilaszek, estimated that the entire Polish lands, ethnic Polish lands, had 30% of such cases ending with death penalty. And among other harsher punishments for witchcraft use in Ukraine were flogging and more rarely banishments. More often, people whose guilt was proven had to pay a fine to the court or to the church. And all such verdicts were not based on any legal prescriptions, because the prescription was death penalty, but rather on common sense of the judges and their intuition. Due to this laconic nature of Ukrainian court records, there is not much we can learn from them about the participants of the cases. Plus, the names are very tricky. But even from these terse texts, we can learn a few things, such as the names and genders of people suspected or accused of witchcraft, the same information about their victims and their and relative position of accusers and accused. And also we learned about actions that led to suspicions of witchcraft. Some of the complaints and longer accounts of the witchcraft trials can provide us with more information, such as the marital status and social standing, but never the age of the accused and defendant, accuser and defendant, and also their relationship to each other, family or household member, neighbors, etc. Sometimes we also find mention of the profession or religious denomination of the actors involved, but not always. A few words about gender pattern. In this respect, the Ukrainian pattern of witchcraft accusation, at least according to the sample under discussion, is female-oriented. However, at the same time, 22% of those accused were men, which, interestingly enough, more or less corresponds to the average rate for Europe. It is also worth noting that in the ethnic Polish lands of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the distribution was slightly different. Pilaszek estimated that only around 10% of those accused were men. So there were more men accused in Ukrainian lands. And again, in contrast to another neighbor, to Muscovy, there the relation was reversed, and they have around 70 or 75% of men accused of witchcraft. And we have Ukraine in between. Yeah. The demonic component, which was widespread in witchcraft accusations of Western, countries which belong to Western Christianity in Ukraine was less than marginal. Only about 4% of cases included any mention of the devil or the evil spirit. And this was the conclusion already made by Antonovich in his publication, and my case didn't add much to this. A few more cases, 10 or 11%, were about business rivalry or success in some enterprise, such as winning a trial. In all other cases, the matter of conflict was within the domestic sphere, the bewitchment of children or other family members, love magic, or an assault on fertility, or the community's well-being and security. And many of these were in some way associated with women's spheres of interest and influence, which is why it is not surprising that women were the main actors of witchcraft trials on both sides of the accusers and the accused. The majority of accusations concerned harm to health and life. People would come to court with their suspicions of accusations of witchcraft when a close relative fell ill or died as the result of an alleged witchcraft assault. Some of these cases involved serious problems, while others were rather amusing. For example, when people attributed their children's pimples to witchcraft, and even the court members laughed on such accusations. And I would like to have to say a few words about social standing, because it is one of the probably most important features of Ukrainian accusations. Because because of the nature of the Ukrainian sources, which are mostly records of the municipal courts, most of the cases, approximately 90%, involved people of roughly equal social status, neighbors, colleagues, and family members. Accusations against representatives of minorities and marginalized groups, such as beggars and vagabonds, were not unknown. However, they constituted a small fraction of trials. For example, there is only one accusation of witchcraft against a Roma, one against a Turk, and 5 against Jews. In the rest of cases, accusations were made by people of different social strata, well, only 10%, but they're important, mainly by social superiors against people of subordinate status. The cases of this kind with superiors accusing their subordinates often stood out because the majority of these cases ended with the majority of the cases that ended with death sentences fall into this group. So most of those who were sentenced to death, to execution, were those accused by their superiors. If a servant or a serf dared to use witchcraft or was suspected of using witchcraft to threaten his or her master, or to gain some benefits. And if a master was willing to push charges, the court was ready to forsake its usual leniency and pass a harsh verdict. And this is just very, you just cannot miss it. It's so prominent. The most renowned of such cases is the witchcraft panic initiated by Hetman Ivan Brykhovetsky in 1667. It's the case from the Hetmanate. The victim of alleged witchcraft attack held the highest possible position, the ruler of the left bank Ukraine and his wife. We know of what happened from the reports of some witnesses who were present in Hadych, the residence of the hetman. At that time, it is known that Daria, the hetman's wife, became pregnant in 1666, but in 1667 she had a miscarriage, and it was suspected that witchcraft was at work. 5 women were declared to be the witches who had snatched the baby from Daria's womb. They were also accused of bewitching the hetman himself, Brykhovetsky. He and his wife had fallen ill as a result of alleged bewitchment. According to one rumor mentioned in the report, some small animals were observed visiting the women who were under arrest. So 6 women accused of witchcraft were burned as witches according to the hetman's order. But very similar things happened in the Ukrainian lands under Polish rule. Once again, the lords, when they accused their servants or serfs of assaulting them with alleged witchcraft, these people, even without enough evidence, even without recognizing that they were guilty ones, they were still punished by execution. In all these cases involving masters accusing their servants of bewitchment, especially those that ended in executions, it was not the crime of witchcraft itself that made the judges impose severe sentences, because in the rest of very similar cases we have quite different outcome. The accusations brought by masters against their servants would have been based on pure suspicions, when no real harm was done, no one died as a result of the alleged witchcraft. Well, there could be some problems with health, but not necessarily serious ones. That is what is important is that it was not a witch who was to be punished and executed, but rather a disloyal servant who had undermined his or her master's trust. Um, and yeah, I already mentioned that some accusations were made against certain professional groups which were under bigger suspicion than others. So even though the records do not provide us with detailed information about the people involved in the trials, it is possible to trace some professional groups, representatives of which were more or less often mentioned among the participants. Given that most witchcraft trials came from urban environment, it is not surprising that the most numerous professional group mentioned in the trial records is that of craftsmen, guilds members, both men and women were accusers and accused. So craftsmen and their wives were mentioned in sources as both on both sides of the trials. It is more curious that Orthodox and Uniate priests, along with their wives, constituted a second noticeable group, mostly mentioned in sources as being accused or suspected of witchcraft. Strange as it may seem at first, this can be explained. Priests were commonly associated with access to supernatural power. They belonged to the tiny group of literate people and they were considered bearers of knowledge to whom the community would often turn for advice. Of course, not every piece of advice was good, and in situations when something went wrong, priests could be accused or at least suspected of being witches who wanted to cause some harm by giving this bad advice. Additionally, priests were public figures in small communities, and their misdeeds and vices were noticed by everyone. And finally, the last and maybe least numerous of these three groups, professional groups registered in the trial records, was that composed of soldiers, and there are soldiers on both sides as defendants and as accused and accusers. And it is also not very surprising because this group holds very specific body of superstitions of their own, and they are more suspicious when something goes off. So, especially when they act as accusers, it is quite understandable. Well, demonology and religious aspect. Talking about Ukrainian witchcraft trials, it is impossible not to mention a religious factor. Though Ukrainian lands were multi-ethnic and multi-confessional, Eastern Christian tradition was a dominant one, especially in small towns and villages. Catholic influences, especially on nobility, were quite significant, but they were negligent in respect of witchcraft beliefs. Further, I will give a short overview of Orthodox demonological views on witchcraft and witches. Unlike the demonology of Western Christianity, Ukrainian Orthodox demonology was minimally elaborated, and played only a marginal role in theological, polemical, or legal thought. Although in sermons and other religious literature, the devil and his servants were mentioned quite frequently, they never received attention as subjects to be explored or examined on their own right. So there was no corpus of demonology akin to that which existed in Western Christianity. Stories about the devil, demons, and witches were often used by Ukrainian preachers of the 17th century as a rhetorical tool, for example, when dealing with religious opponents who were accused of using demonic practices and excessive trust in magic. This same weapon was used by the Poles who, during the civil wars of the 17th century, accused the Ukrainians and the Cossacks in particular of the same vices, including the use of the services of witches. However, the main targets of Ukrainian Orthodox preachers were not witches, but rather sin and sinners in general. The devil was associated with sin, and in denouncing the devil, preachers were denouncing sin. Calling all sinners the devil's servants, and including witches and sorcerers among them. And here on this picture, you can see, well, this is part of the Last Judgment icon, and we can see witch along with infanticide and slanderer among the sinners, and which is not shown as some special kind of sin which is different from others. So the status of witches did not differ much from that of other grave sinners who automatically became the devil's subordinates. That is why there was no need for the elaborate concept of a diabolical pact, nor a secret night meetings, the Sabbath, though there is one case which is quite unique, in which a woman accused of witchcraft told a story, very elaborate story, how she was flying to the meeting with other witches, but this is the only case I can cite. Witches, like other sinners, worship their master simply by their sinful actions. Despite the absence of elaborate demonological notions such as the Sabbath or a diabolical pact, which developed in the West, some sources indicate that these ideas were known, probably from European texts, at least to the educated public in the Ukrainian lands. And we have several cases when the odd individual, usually a clerk, a young man clerk, even tried to conclude such a pact, willingly swearing away his Christian allegiance in a contract written in blood. In trial materials, one often comes across the branding of witchcraft as a practice abominable to God or forbidden by God. However, it is doubtful that such phrases point to the judge's deep knowledge of religious concepts, but rather reflect a generally held understanding of witchcraft as a sinful practice. Moreover, these formulas were used in legal manuals. So the use of these stock phrases by Ukrainian town court members indicates that their familiarity with the law rather than religious discourse. In fact, religious authorities displayed a consistent reticence when it came to intervening against witchcraft. Yes, I will miss this longest story because we don't have that much time, and I will skip to the next slide. Concluding my story. Overall, Ukrainian witchcraft trials do not offer much insight into the persecution of witches and cannot be described as witch hunt. Instead, they fall into the category of so-called village witches. However, despite this labeling challenge, Ukrainian witchcraft trials are valuable sources for information about the society of the 17th and 18th century, particularly among the segments below the educated elites. While studies about Ukrainian nobility, shliachta, and clergy are abundant, there is a scarcity of research on townsfolk and peasantry and peasants, and these witchcraft trials are a good source to start with. Despite the frustrating lack of detail in witchcraft trial records, they provide rich insights into the everyday concerns, fears, beliefs, and social dynamics of common people. These trials shed light on serious conflicts, rivalries, and tensions within communities, as well as the importance of familial and neighborly support networks. Moreover, they offer valuable insights into concepts of illness and health, including the perceived causes of illness. Additionally, these records often offer glimpses into economic challenges faced by towns and even provide evidence of labor migration and labor force needs. And here I can recall one curious case from Kamenets-Podilsky in 1749, when a young peasant herdsman has accused his master's wife of bewitching him and cursing him into a sexual relationship. And despite the scandalous nature of this accusation, the master chose to overlook his wife's alleged adultery rather than dismiss a skillful herdsmen, and there are many cases like this which show complete life of common people in Ukrainian towns and villages from completely different side. So finally, witchcraft trials materials offer valuable information about witchcraft itself, magic practices, and popular beliefs prevalent during this period. And this is all I wanted to tell you today. Thank you. I will stop my presentation here.